my whole mess is mess. Hi guys, it's Miss Hennessy. I am actually recording this from my classroom. As you can see, feels a lot more normal talking to you guys about psych from here. I also feel like I'm looking to the side, so let me try and move. There, is that a little bit better? Still don't feel like I'm looking right at you, but that's okay. So I want to just quickly go through your chapter 3 review guide. I got a couple of questions through email, so I'll address that stuff. And of course, on Sunday, we'll come back together, optional if you want to jump on and ask questions. We'll do a live Google Meet on Sunday. But for now, I just want to take a look. I've got your review guide here in front of me. I'm going to take a look, go through real quick some of the kind of big things I want to make sure that you guys have down. So if you don't have your review guide in front of you right now, please pause this and go get it so that you can add or clarify anything you need to as I go through it. So starting with the external brain structures, I know a lot of you had trouble labeling and adding text boxes. I apologize. Some of you did it fine. I think in Word, it's a lot easier to go to insert and do a text box. I guess in Google Docs, that's not possible. You guys did fine using the colors to label it. But I just want to run through each lobe very quickly and make sure we have somewhere in our notes the frontal lobe. The prefrontal cortex is something that's come up on the AP exam and FRQs more than a couple of times. So remember that very front part of your frontal lobe, that is the last part of the brain that develops. That is your decision-making, planning, judgment, our ability to weigh consequences, think kind of hypothetically. We look at that brain development and we see a lot of growth there when we hit puberty. If you remember talking about that in the developmental chapter, which also lines up with Piaget's formal operational stage of cognitive development. So you can kind of tie all that stuff together to remember that frontal lobe, especially the prefrontal cortex, is that last area that's really has a lot to do with maturity and our ability to make good decisions, to kind of control our impulses, our inhibitions, things like that. And then also the motor cortex is there. So all that voluntary muscle movement is controlled from the frontal lobe, that back strip of the frontal lobe, and then Broca's area, the area that allows us to speak. Moving from the front to the top back of the brain is your parietal lobe. Big thing with the parietal lobe to remember is going to be the sensory cortex or the somatosensory cortex. It's the same thing. That's on the next page in that chart, but it's really important for you to make sure that you know that as well. That is our ability for all of our tactile senses. So any type of sense of touch, but also awareness of your body positioning. So just make sure that you know that. That's better. Again, that's one of those terms they kind of mark as comes up on the AP exam quite a bit. So sensory cortex lies at the front of the parietal lobe, right up against that motor cortex. And that is all of our tactile sensation as well as our awareness of body positioning. So things like your vestibular sense are communicating with that area of the brain. Your kinesthetic sense is communicating with that area of the brain. Okay, then we move down to the occipital. Remember, its biggest function is going to be vision. So your visual cortex is located there in the back of the brain, and that is where we process all visual information. And then on the sides, your temporal lobes. Temporal lobes, we process auditory information, all of our hearing. And then Wernicke's area, remember, is there as well, which is our ability to comprehend language. So just kind of go through the brainstem is there, medulla, pons, just making sure you understand the brainstem is vital for our ability to survive. You damage the brainstem and you're probably going to die. Okay, and then the cerebellum, which cerebellum balance coordination. And we talk about implicit memory, which we'll get to when we get to chapter 7 this week. Okay, any questions on the scans? Hopefully those are pretty straightforward. PET scan, remember, no detail, but does show activity using radioactive glucose. The MRI is what we want to use if we want to see soft tissue in detail. fMRI will give us both. Going back, I already kind of touched on the prefrontal and the sensory cortex, but on that chart with the parts of the brain, look over that. Don't mix up your thalamus, hypothalamus. That happens a lot. Make sure that you just kind of go through and are pretty familiar with each one of your brain structures. As far as neural communication goes and the neuron, I don't know that you're going to see where you're going to have to do any like specific parts of the neuron. However, do make sure you kind of understand how an action potential works. Going from at rest, where we have the negatively charged ions inside, positive on the out. And then that, polarization, that's polarization when we depolarize that cell body, having those positive ions rushing in, causing an action potential. Other than that, I'm not gonna spend much time on the neuron. Okay, neurotransmitters. I know I put some of them on there multiple times, but that's because these are the ones that come up most often. So I'm going to just go through the neurotransmitter questions 1 through 8 real quick. The first one was done for you, GABA, your inhibitory neurotransmitter. Number 2, too much dopamine is what we find in schizophrenic patients. Number 3, low serotonin, as well as low norepinephrine. So both of those are linked to depression. So either one actually could have worked for number 3. I know most of you probably put serotonin, but please make a note there that norepinephrine also is low when people who are depressed. Norepinephrine, which is what speeds up everything, our bodily processes, when that's low, that causes a lot of the lethargy in people who are depressed, a lot of the lack of energy. Too little dopamine is linked to Parkinson's. That's number 4. Alzheimer's is associated with deterioration of the acetylcholine neuron. So neurons that produce acetylcholine start to deteriorate. So low levels in Alzheimer's patients. Number 6 is also serotonin. That is hunger, sleep, mood. It plays a role in all of those things. 7, endorphins are what control pain and pleasure. And then 8, Zoloft, Paxil, and Prozac. Those are all antidepressants. We didn't get to that this year, unfortunately, but those antidepressants will block the reuptake of serotonin. And just to kind of reiterate what reuptake is, remember when a neuron releases neurotransmitters across the synaptic gap, whatever's excess is there, whatever's not used by the receiving neuron gets reabsorbed into the sending neuron. These drugs go in, they block that reuptake from occurring. That way you have excess, in this case, serotonin in your system to help with the symptoms of depression. Okay, moving on to the divisions of the nervous system. The big ones that they hit on for FRQs is the sympathetic division of your autonomic nervous system. So when we look at the peripheral, we have the somatic, the autonomic, sympathetic, and parasympathetic. The sympathetic comes up or has come up more often than others on FRQs. Make sure you know that's the arousing side. That's the side that increases heart rate, increases so blood pressure, breathing. This is associated with fight or flight that you may see. And with that, the adrenal glands are also common on FRQs when we're talking the biological stuff. So make sure you know your adrenal glands sit right above the kidneys. They release epinephrine, norepinephrine, what we commonly know as adrenaline. But those are hormones. Remember, hormones, neurotransmitters, they're both chemical messengers. Hormones just happen to travel through your bloodstream. So they travel slower, but they last longer. Their effects are a lot longer lasting. Make sure that you remember that because you may see something about your glands, adrenal glands more specifically, just from past experience, but knowing that that is where the hormone norepinephrine or epinephrine comes from. Remember, they also exist in a neurotransmitter form. Let me see. Sorry, looking. Let's move on to the next page, the divided brain. I do just want you to make note of what plasticity is, your brain's ability to adapt, to change, take over functions of areas that have been damaged or lost. Plasticity is the greatest during childhood. That is because, as you all know, we already talked about this, but our brain is not fully developed. So as we continue to make connections, our brain is more plastic, meaning it can adapt and change more. So if we have, for example, half of our brain removed because of seizures because of a tumor, then we have a better chance of adapting and taking over all those functions the younger we are. Split brain. So this is one of the questions I got through email. So I'm going to go through the split brain process again. I know it gets confusing, but like I told you before, if you get a split brain question, draw a picture. And I had a picture in your study guide for you. You're looking at the split brain with the word rainbow, splitting the visual field between rain and bow. So if this is a split brain patient, remember drawing that picture, the arrow from rain in the left visual field should go to the right side of the brain. The word bow, which is in the right visual field, goes to the left side of the brain. Okay? Right eye, left brain. Left eye, right brain. Got it. Good. So remember, and draw this in your picture too, only the left side of the brain can speak. So speech is on the left side of the brain, which means that whatever's in your right visual field is what the patient can verbalize and what they will tell you that they see. So this patient will tell you that they see the word bow, B-O-W, because it is in their right visual field, therefore being processed on the left side of the brain, which is the brain that has the ability to produce language and speak. Okay, so with that, handedness, the hand and the eye are the same. So if they can see it with their right eye, they can point at it or draw it with their right hand, because the left brain controls not just the right eye, but also the right hand. Okay, so if it asks, like it does in the next question, to draw the picture with their right hand, it's going to be the word bow, because that's in their right visual field. So the word rain, which is in the left visual field, is what they would draw or point at with their left hand. Okay? If you have any more questions on that, hop on Sunday and we can talk, or just email me and we'll hopefully get through it together. Or maybe you just won't see a split brain question. I don't know, but just in case. And then in the left and right brain differences, big one, just don't forget the left is language. Broca's, Wernicke's, all of those language capabilities are on the left side of your brain. Okay, not on the right. Don't make that mistake, please. Left brain controls right side of the body, right brain controls left side of the body. The other thing for the right brain, we're talking perceptual tasks, anything artistic, musical, visual, spatial, that's all going to be face recognition, all going to be right side of the brain. Okay, your math, your logic, your words, your numbers, that's going to be left side of the brain. Okay, that is all I really have for chapter 3. I know it probably seems like there should be more, considering it took us forever to get through that chapter, but that's what I have. A lot of this comes up again, as you know, as we go into further chapters, but for now, that's all I want to hit on. So I will be back with you on Sunday or Monday to go over the chapter 4 review guide, and then I will have 6 and 7 for you next week. I know I didn't really talk much about chapter 5. The only things I really want you guys to be familiar with from that is going to be sleep. And so when I come back on the next time, I'll just hit a little bit on the sleep cycle and maybe some sleep disorders, but it's mostly stuff that you guys are pretty well aware of. So, but Sunday, again, 5 o'clock, unless there's a time that works better for everyone else, a different time, shoot me an email or send me a message, let me know. But I'll plan on another Google Meet, 5 o'clock on Sunday, so we can all get together and talk. Just talk if you just want some human interaction, or if you have questions, you can hop on and we can talk about anything from chapter 3 or chapter 4, or we can go back to 1 and 2. I don't care. Just love to see you guys. So if you get the time, even if you can only hop on and say hi for like 10 minutes, we would love that. So again, if there's anything I didn't answer for you or any questions you have, please shoot me an email. And if not, I look forward to seeing you Sunday. Bye, guys. Okay. That wasn't that long. That was only 14